Hello and good morning, and welcome back to the Wondering Podcast. I'm Allison, your host. Today, I want to talk about something I heard the other day, and it really got me thinking. And so, I want to kind of share with you a little bit about it. And it got me curious, it got me wondering, of course. And there's like a story in this. So, sit back, relax, and listen up. So, the other day, someone was talking about, we're talking about curiosity. And what does that really mean? We tell our kids to be curious in school, to discover, so that way they can discover different things, about life, and that we're not just told directly, this is this. We want kids to discover what that is. But as adults, I feel sometimes we lose that curiosity. We accept the world at face value. And I think for some of us, that hurts. But this particular person decided that, of course, he used a coin. So there's, of course, two sides to every coin. There in the US, there's a heads and a tails. And so this person was talking about curiosity, and of course one side of the coin would be curious, and what he said next really struck me, and that was the other side is judgmental. And that really got me thinking about my journey, and of course in healing, and my world being burned down to a crisp. I went through some traumatic experiences in 2022. And when we got to kind of the end of that, we didn't know how long it was going to last. We didn't know how long we were going to be stuck in that situation. We just knew that we meaning me and one of my sisters, we had to help. But we didn't know how long. We didn't know what it meant. We had no idea. We could not have anybody tell us or guide us because it was such a unique experience that we were going through. And we got to the end of it. And basically, it felt like, and I'm going to use this analogy, and that is, it felt like I live in the South, so there you go. I live kind of in Tornado Alley, and so it felt like a tornado had came through, and you finally come out of, wherever you're hiding, and you see the devastation, and you see the rubble, and you kind of look around, and you're like, now what? What do I do? What do you do? Except for this was a big part of this was my life. This wasn't just a tangible physical thing that we were going through. It was emotional, it was mental, and we kind of got to the end, and even a few months, I'd say a good 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, even after the situation finally kind of came to a close. And it was, okay, well, how do we piece it back together? How do I piece myself back together? How do I come out of this trauma experience being better? And better for my kids, better for my husband, better for me. Let's go with me for that matter. And I knew in the midst of it, I'm gonna back up a little bit. I knew in the midst of going through the trauma, I had spoken with a friend of mine, and I had told them, I probably really should talk to somebody like this. I've gone through emotional, mental stresses before, things that I probably should have, you kind of think, probably should go to therapy, but I don't, every excuse in the book. I don't have time. How the heck would I do that? I don't have the money. I don't. And so in the middle of this experience and this situation, I had seen a friend of mine and said, I think it's time. I think it's time. However, again, two sides of the coin, curiosity versus judgment. I had already had experience with therapy. I know I've had a couple friends who had expressed what what it was like to be in therapy. It was a great thing. Do not get me wrong. But I didn't feel like it was a choice for me. What most of us think of, because most people will tell you, go to therapy. You need to go talk to somebody. You need to go, you need to go, you need to go. And what I think a lot of us don't realize, especially in the mental health world, is there's more options than you think. And so I became curious. And I told this friend, she knew of my experience with therapy. She had her own experience of therapy. And so, like I said, I kind of brought some of my own to the table. I had an experience with my daughter in 21. It just didn't seem to work for her. And I knew that being in the situation that I was in, I needed help, and I needed help fast. I didn't have time because it was such a traumatic situation, meaning that it was one thing after another. I didn't go a week without something else happening. Some other big, explosion is what it kind of felt like at the time. And when you get so many of those in such a very short period, it's tough. And so I said, I said, I'm curious what else could be out there. What else could help? What else? And I'm not looking for a quick solution. I was not looking for a quick Band-Aid. It's never quick. I'll be honest about that. So if you're in that place, it's never quick. The point is just to start. The point is to stay curious and figure out what more could be out there. And not just stick to, okay, I'm gonna go to therapy and I'm gonna go talk to this person and we're gonna do it once a week and that's what I can do. And maybe that's what's all in your budget. I get that. But what other options were out there? And so her and I started talking, and she said, I'll keep an ear out, see what I can find, see what I can hear, whatever. She, texted me, called me like a week or two later. I don't even remember how long it was. But she contacted me pretty shortly after that conversation and said, hey, I have a friend of a friend who has been doing this thing, and it's kind of new, don't know what it is, can't really explain it, I don't even know what it's called, but it's helped them. And it's energy work basically, but I knew it wasn't Reiki. I was like, okay. So I contacted the lady, this practitioner, and said, hey, got on my little computer and was like, hey, I think you're seeing my friend, she signed up. Is there any way that we can do a session? I just want to say what this is about. So I went in for my first session. She had a backlist. This practitioner had literally a wait list of people, and it took a month and a half to get in to see her. And so I finally get in and I go see her, and I cannot tell you walking out. And again, I'm still in the middle of my situation. I'm still in the middle of all this, trauma going on, and these little, at that point, I guess it was little mini explosions at that point, trying to find some relief, just trying to find anything that would help me, my nervous system especially. Now I can recognize that it was my nervous system that was completely on high alert. My, whatever that stress hormone that starts with the C, cortisol, was like super high. So I guess you would qualify me into, or put me in a category of very chronic stress because of what was going on. And so I go see this practitioner, and I walk out of there, and of course my ears are up to here. And then I walked out and I was like, oh my gosh, I could feel the weight off my shoulders. I could feel them come down and start to relax. My nervous system was a little bit happier. I was like, whoa, that's intense. Cool. Let's try another one and see where we go. And that led me on a big journey. I started asking questions, like I said, curious, instead of, oh no, and again, I'll be honest, I brought a little judgment to the table, because the judgment for me was, I had a bad experience, not to say a bad experience, but an experience where I knew that therapy didn't work because it didn't work on my child. Not to say that it wouldn't have worked for me, and not to say that I haven't talked to a therapist since. But in that moment, I wanted to be curious and open to what else could be out there. And so this kind of started a journey, excuse me, of being even more curious. What was this about? What was going on? I could feel, the tense. I could feel the relaxation. So what was this? And so it led me on this whole thing of, okay, well, there was a book. Okay, great. Go get the book. The book was on free on Unlimited Kindle, if you have a subscription. So I read the book for free. What harm is that? Picked up a book. Okay, great. Studied that. That's really interesting. That's kind of cool. I want to learn more. So it kind of kept me curious in this curious state. Essentially, I became, I am a licensed practitioner for what's called the Emotion Code, Body Code, and the Belief Code. But it led me down that path. But it also, in that journey of basically studying how we trap emotions, how do we release those trapped emotions, how do we identify them, negative emotions especially is what I'm speaking to, what more can the body hold on? If you've ever read the book, what's the book? The Body Keeps Score. I don't even have to read them. I didn't even read the book. Honestly, I'll be honest. I didn't read the book. I got it from the library, and y'all, I'm blind. You can see I've got glasses on. I'm blind. Like, I would have had to read it with a magnifying glass. So, I'll have to buy the book on digital because I couldn't read that. It was the print was too tiny and it's thick. So for me though, I already know the body keeps score because of the work I've done and because of what I've experienced. So I was like, yeah, anything in that book is probably right on. And I've had friends who've read it. So we kind of like, give me the synopsis, you can probably go into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me like a 3-page summary of it or something, some highlights. If you really want to look into that. But it really led me on this journey. But one of the biggest things, again, going back to, curiosity versus judgment. And I'm going to leave you with 2 things here. First off, stay curious, because not also, yes, I have really been heavily in the emotion code, the body code, and the belief code. I'm also into what else is out there, what other healing, there's a word. What other things out there could we experience to help heal the body? So that way the body, because the body is so unique, we still don't understand everything our bodies can do. And we are extremely magical creatures, and we have healing powers. We have to unlock them though. And so what else? Acupuncture, massage therapy, which most people go, oh, would you go see? That's really nice. I'm like, I do it because I hurt. I see the chiropractor. I do things that most people go, ooh, why would you do that? Or that must be nice. And, they kind of have a little bit of a jealous tone. And I'm like, no, I do it for my health. It has nothing to do with, yes, it's probably a luxury, but I do it for my health, and I've always done it for my health. My back, I threw it out when I was 15, like bad. And so I have issues with my lower back since then. I would, used to do competitive dance, did competitive gymnastics. I was hard on my body as a child. Now I'm in the mode of I need to take care of it because I'm getting older and it's going to hurt. I read a book last year that led me down a path of you need to move. Get up off this couch and move your body. Figure out how to do it. And yes, it partly had to do with weight, but the bigger part was movement helps heal, and it helps the mental state. And so it was one of those, a combination of things. And so it's led me down this huge path of figuring out how to heal. Not just for me, but for my kids, for my family, for the world around me. So because when I'm healed and I don't want to say when I'm healed, because that's wrong, because you're never really truly 100%. You're always going to be in the process of healing. There's, it is. It's a journey. It's not a destination. But to help to be able to pour into my community, to pour into others, I have to be in a spot. But the other second thing I was going to say, end this with, and that is this: the other side of the coin is judgment. So if you can't stay curious, you usually end up judge. And I am not an exception to that. There have, especially through my studies with the belief code, meaning you are born and you, as you go throughout life, you have a negative set of beliefs in you. It's what makes you interpret the world around you to your perception. And the way that you interpret it, you can go through the exact same experience as someone else. I mean, the exact same thing together, and come out with two very different viewpoints of what actually transpired and what happened. And that's your belief system. I have worked really hard when I have an extremely negative thought or a negative judgment. Ooh, that person looks, or that, and I've learned how to literally stop myself in my tracks and go, where did that come from? That sounded judgmental. Let's go think about that. Why did I think that? And staying on the flip side of curiosity. Instead of, I had the judgment thought, how do I change it now? You look great. You're amazing. You're going to be a success. You might have been a child at that moment, and you might have thrown a tantrum in that moment, but how do we think the positive? Nope, everything is going to work out. Everything's always working out for you. Look at how lucky you are. And then showing the gratitude in some of that as well. So, stay curious. You're amazing. And I'll see you next week. Have a good one.